The emergency lights bathed the Grand Council chamber in red as Senior Archivist floated toward the central podium. His tentacles trembled as he carried the data tablet, and every representative in the circular chamber could sense his distress. In 300 years of service, had never called an emergency session. Whatever he had discovered in the survey reports must be truly catastrophic. Honored representatives, began, his translator converting his chemical signals into audible speech. Our automated survey drone has completed its analysis of the third planet in the Sol system. The species there call it Earth. He paused, his skin flickering with colors that indicated deep concern. I must inform you that every single measurement places this world in the extreme hazard category. Ambassador of the Harmonious Collective leaned forward in her seat, her feathers ruffled with interest. Extreme. Surely you mean it simply has some challenging characteristics. His tentacles writhed in a gesture equivalent to shaking one's head. No, Ambassador. I mean extreme by every metric we use to classify worlds. He activated the holographic display, and a blue-green planet materialized above the podium. Let me begin with the gravity. Earth's surface gravity is 40% higher than our established safe zone for inhabited worlds. Most of our species would require exoskeletons just to walk there. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representative, whose people evolved on a low-gravity moon, made a clicking sound of disbelief. 40%. Are you certain the drones didn't malfunction? The readings were multiple times, confirmed. He swiped at the display and new data appeared. But the gravity is merely the beginning. The atmospheric composition is equally alarming. Earth's oxygen concentration is 21%. For reference, anything above 15% is classified as a fire hazard. The entire planet is essentially a tinderbox. One spark in the wrong conditions, and organic matter ignites almost instantly. The chamber fell silent. Several representatives checked their personal devices, as if hopping the data might change if they looked at it themselves. Continued, his voice growing more strained with each revelation. The planet experiences constant tectonic activity. The surface is divided into massive plates that grind against each other continuously. This causes frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. The survey recorded 3 major seismic events just during the standard observation period. He pulled up footage of a mountain exploding, ejecting molten rock kilometers into the sky. These eruptions release toxic gases and can alter global climate patterns. Ambassador's feathers had stopped ruffling. She sat perfectly still, staring at the display. The weather systems are equally hostile, went on. Earth generates atmospheric disturbances called hurricanes and tornadoes. The wind speeds can exceed 200 kilometers per hour. That's faster than most civilian spacecraft travel in atmospheric conditions. These storms can demolish structures and hurl debris with lethal force. The hologram showed a swirling vortex of destruction carving through a landscape. Representative, whose species prided itself on logic and reason, raised one of his 4 hands. Surely no complex life could evolve under such conditions. This must be a barren world with perhaps some bacterial colonies in protected areas. Skin flashed a deep purple, indicating he wished that were true. I'm afraid not, Representative. This is where the report becomes truly disturbing. He changed the display to show various creatures. Earth supports an incredible diversity of life, including numerous apex predators that would require military-grade weapons to neutralize. The first image showed a massive creature with powerful jaws lined with teeth as long as his forearm. This is called a crocodile. It can bite with a force exceeding 16,000 newtons. It ambushes prey from the water and performs what they call a death roll to tear apart its victims. Before anyone could respond, he showed another creature. This is a bear. It can weigh over 600 kilograms and run at speeds up to 50 kilometers per hour. It has claws that can disembowel most species with a single swipe. The images continued. Tigers with retractable claws and predatory instincts honed over millions of years. Venomous snakes that could kill with a single bite. Sharks with multiple rows of razor-sharp teeth. Spiders that could incapacitate creatures many times their size with neurotoxins. The chamber watched in growing horror as displayed Earth's bestiary of nightmares. "And this," said, pulling up footage of a massive shape moving through dark water, "is what they call a blue whale. It's the largest creature we've ever discovered on any planet. Over 30 meters long and weighing more than 150,000 kilograms. Is it a predator?" someone asked nervously. "No, it eats microscopic organisms. But its size alone demonstrates the kind of extreme environment we're dealing with. Everything on this planet is scaled to survive in harsh conditions." Ambassador finally found her voice. "Surely there are no sapient species on this world. No civilization could develop under such hostile circumstances." Skin turned a sickly. "That's why I called this emergency session Ambassador. There is a sapient species on Earth. They call themselves humans. Not only do they exist, but they thrive. The survey counted over 8 billion individuals. They have cities, complex societies, art, literature, and technology. According to our analysis, they're approximately 50 to 75 years away from developing faster-than-light travel." The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sound, light, and chemical signals. Had to activate the order chime 3 times before silence returned. "Are you telling us," she said slowly, carefully pronouncing each word, "that a species evolved on a Class X death world and is about to join the galactic community?" "Yes, Ambassador." "Show us these humans." Pulled up images of human beings. The chamber studied them carefully. They appeared relatively average in size and build compared to most galactic species. 2 arms, 2 legs, bilateral symmetry. Eyes positioned forward on their heads, indicating predatory evolution. But otherwise, they looked almost disappointingly ordinary. "They don't look particularly dangerous," Representative observed. "Appearances can be deceiving," warned. "Humans are endurance predators. Their bodies are designed for persistence hunting. They can run for hours, tracking prey until it collapses from exhaustion. They have remarkable fine motor control, allowing them to create and use complex tools. Their forward-facing eyes give them excellent depth perception for targeting. And perhaps most concerning, they have demonstrated incredible adaptability." He showed footage of humans in various environments. Humans crossing vast deserts. Humans climbing mountains where the oxygen was thin enough to incapacitate most species. Humans diving deep underwater without breathing apparatus, their bodies adapted to hold their breath for minutes at a time. Humans living in frozen wastelands and steaming jungles. "They've colonized nearly every environment on their planet," said. "From the poles to the equator, from sea level to high altitude. They build structures that withstand earthquakes. They develop warning systems for volcanic eruptions and hurricanes. When faced with their planet's extreme conditions, they don't flee. They adapt and overcome." Ambassador stood slowly. Her voice carried the weight of her position and the gravity of the moment. "I move that we classify Earth as an exclusion zone. This world is too dangerous for civilized contact. Any species that evolved under such extreme conditions poses an unacceptable risk to galactic security. We must establish warning beacons around their system immediately." "Seconded," came several voices at once. The vote was unanimous. Within hours, automated beacons were dispatched to the Sol system. They would broadcast a simple message to any ship that approached: "Warning. Extreme environment world. Dominant species evolved under hostile conditions. All contact prohibited by Galactic Council decree. Approach at your own risk." As the session adjourned, Representative approached privately. "You seem troubled, old friend. More troubled than the situation warrants." His tentacles coiled tightly around himself, a gesture of deep worry. Did you notice their technology, their cities, their vehicles, their structures? Yes, primitive by our standards, but advanced for their stage of development. They built all of that while fighting their planet every single day, said quietly. They created art while dodging predators. They wrote poetry while surviving disasters that would devastate our worlds. They reached for the stars while living in what we classify as hell. He looked at his friend with all three of his primary eyes. What happens when a species that tough, that stubborn, that relentlessly determined joins the galactic stage? Considered this for a long moment. I suppose we'll find out in 50 to 75 years. I'm afraid so, agreed. I'm very afraid so. 3 years later, every prediction model was proven wrong. The humans didn't take 50 years to achieve faster-than-light travel. They didn't take 75 years. They did it in 3. The Endeavour emerged from its first successful warp jump on the edge of Galactic Council space, and communication channels across a dozen worlds lit up with alarm. The impossible had happened ahead of schedule, and no one was prepared. The Galactic Council convened in emergency session once again. This time, the chamber was packed with representatives, military advisors, and medical teams. Everyone had an opinion on how to handle the situation, and most of those opinions involved keeping the humans as far away as possible. We must establish communication, Ambassador argued, though her feathers showed she was far from confident in this position. We cannot simply ignore a new spacefaring species. It violates every first contact protocol we've established. Those protocols were written for civilized species, countered General Thrax, whose military accomplishments were legendary across 3 sectors. Not for apex predators from death worlds. I recommend we enforce the exclusion zone with force if necessary. That could provoke a war, Representative pointed out. A war with a species we know almost nothing about, except that they survived conditions that would kill most of us. The debate raged for days. Finally, a compromise was reached. They would make contact, but on their terms. The meeting would take place on Sanctuary Station, a neutral diplomatic platform that also happened to be one of the most heavily armed structures in Council space. If the humans proved hostile, Sanctuary Station had enough firepower to eliminate the threat. The invitation was sent through carefully encrypted channels. To everyone's surprise, the humans accepted immediately and seemed almost eager to meet. 2 weeks later, Sanctuary Station went on high alert. Every defensive system was primed. Medical teams stood ready for any contingency. Some representatives wore full environment suits despite the compatible atmosphere. Others refused to attend in person, choosing to observe via holographic link from the safety of their. Ambassador stood in the grand chamber, her diplomatic training barely keeping her feathers from betraying her nervousness. When the doors opened and the human delegation entered, she felt her primary heart skip a beat. There were 3 of them. The leader was a female, identified by the briefing materials as Ambassador Sarah. She wore a simple dark suit and carried no visible weapons. Beside her walked a male called Doctor who smiled pleasantly and looked around the chamber with obvious curiosity. The third human, Commander James, moved with the fluid grace of a trained warrior. He was the security chief and could see why. Despite his relaxed posture, there was something coiled about him, like a spring waiting to release. But what struck most was something she hadn't expected from creatures who evolved on a hell world. They looked friendly. Ambassador stepped forward with an outstretched hand, a human gesture of greeting that the briefing materials had explained. Ambassador, Sarah said warmly, it's an honor to meet you. Thank you for inviting us. Carefully extended her wing and allowed Sarah to grasp it gently. The human's grip was firm but not crushing. The honor is ours, Ambassador. Welcome to Sanctuary Station. Please, allow me to introduce you to the other council members. The introductions proceeded smoothly. Each council representative met the humans with varying degrees of apprehension. Sarah maintained a diplomatic smile throughout, shaking hands, wings, tentacles, and various other appendages with equal grace. Doctor asked polite questions about each species. Commander stood quietly, observing everything with sharp eyes. When the formal introductions concluded, everyone took their seats. Ambassador initiated the diplomatic protocol, explaining the structure of the Galactic Council and its purpose. Sarah listened attentively, occasionally taking notes on a small device. Everything seemed to be going well. Then came the difficult part. Cleared her throat, a human gesture she'd practiced for this moment. Ambassador, we must address a sensitive topic. Your Earth has been classified by our survey teams as an extreme environment world. This classification is not meant as an insult, but rather as a recognition of certain unique challenges your planet presents. Unique challenges? Sarah asked, her tone neutral. Yes, the gravity, the atmospheric composition, the geological instability, the predatory wildlife. According to our metrics, Earth ranks in the extreme hazard category for every measure we use to classify inhabited worlds. Pulled up the data on the holographic display. We felt it was important to be transparent about this classification and discuss what it means for Earth's integration into the galactic community. Doctor leaned forward, studying the data with interest. This is fascinating. So our planet is considered unusually dangerous by galactic standards. I'm afraid so, confirmed. Extremely dangerous, in fact. Most council species would require significant technological assistance just to survive on Earth's surface. The gravity alone would be debilitating for many of us. Sarah and exchanged glances. Then Commander made a sound. It took a moment to recognize it as laughter. Not nervous laughter or mocking laughter, but genuine amusement. Several council representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. I'm sorry, said, though he was still grinning. That's just Earth. That's normal for us. That's like a regular Tuesday back home. The chamber fell silent. Every representative stared at the humans with a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. Sarah maintained her diplomatic composure, but there was a warmth in her eyes that suggested she shared her colleagues' amusement. Commander is right, though perhaps less diplomatically phrased than I would prefer. The conditions you describe are simply what we consider normal. We evolved in those conditions. They shaped us, but they don't frighten us. But the predators, Representative blurted out. We've seen the survey footage. Creatures that could kill with a single bite. Surely you must live in constant fear of them. Smiled. Actually, many humans keep predators as companions. We call them pets. Dogs, which are descended from wolves, live in our homes. Cats, which are obligate carnivores with natural hunting instincts, sleep in our beds. Children play with them. Children, voice came out as a squeak. You expose your young to predators. They're domesticated, Sarah explained patiently. But yes, human children interact with animals that might seem dangerous to other species. Our children also play sports that involve physical contact and risk of injury. They climb trees, swim in oceans, explore forests. It's part of how we learn and grow. General Thrax, who had been silent until now, spoke up. His voice was gruff and carried the weight of military authority. Ambassador, help me understand something. You're telling us that conditions we classify as extreme hazards are normal for your species, that creatures we would need weapons to face are pets in your homes, that you expose your young to dangers we would never accept for adults. That's correct, Sarah confirmed. Then what do humans consider dangerous? Sarah paused, considering the question carefully. Well, we have extreme sports. Skydiving, rock climbing without safety equipment, deep-sea diving, base jumping. Those activities are considered risky even by our standards. What's skydiving? Asked. Humans jump out of flying aircraft and fall toward the ground at terminal velocity, explained cheerfully. We use parachutes to slow our descent before impact. It's done for recreation. The silence in the chamber was absolute. Several representatives checked their translators, certain something must have been lost in translation. No species would deliberately jump out of a flying vehicle thousands of meters in the air. That would be insane. For recreation, General Thrax repeated slowly, you deliberately place yourselves in mortal danger for fun. Some humans do, yes, Sarah acknowledged. Others prefer safer activities, but I think you're beginning to understand the perspective difference here. What you see as extreme, we see as part of life. Our planet challenged us, yes, but it also gave us incredible diversity, beauty, and resilience. Ambassador felt like the ground was shifting beneath her feet, though Sanctuary Station's artificial gravity was perfectly stable. Everything she thought she understood about Earth and humans was being recontextualized in a deeply unsettling way. Ambassador, she said carefully, you must understand our concern. The Galactic Council has existed for thousands of years. We've established protocols and standards based on hundreds of member species. In all that time, we've never encountered a species from an environment as hostile as Earth. We're struggling to understand how to integrate your people into our community when the baseline for what constitutes safety is so radically different. Sarah nodded slowly. I do understand, Ambassador, and I appreciate your transparency about these concerns, but I think there's something you need to understand about humans. She stood and walked to the holographic display showing Earth. Yes, our planet is harsh by your standards. Yes, we evolved to handle conditions you find extreme, but here's what your surveys didn't capture. She gestured at the rotating image. Humans don't just survive Earth, we love it. We write poetry about sunsets. We compose music inspired by storms. We create art depicting the predators you fear. We've declared our most dangerous creatures worth protecting from extinction. We climb mountains not because we have to, but because we want to know what it feels like to stand at the summit. We dive into the deepest parts of our oceans not for resources, but for the wonder of discovery. Her voice grew stronger, more passionate. Earth made us tough, yes. It made us resilient and adaptable, but it also taught us to find beauty in chaos, hope in adversity, and strength in community. Every challenge our planet threw at us became an opportunity to grow, to learn, to become better. That's what makes us human. The chamber remained silent, but it was a different kind of silence now. Not shocked disbelief, but thoughtful consideration. Commander spoke up, his voice softer than before. My ancestors came from a place on Earth where the temperature could swing 40 degrees in a single day, where water was scarce and the sun could kill you if you stayed out too long. They called it home. They raised families there. They found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. That's the human story, repeated across every climate and continent on our planet. Doctor added, when we learned we weren't alone in the universe, do you know what the most common reaction was among humans? Not fear, not aggression, excitement, joy, curiosity. We couldn't wait to meet you, to learn from you, to share what we've learned. Yes, we come from a world you call extreme, but that world taught us to face challenges with determination and optimism. Ambassador looked at the three humans standing before the council. They didn't look like monsters from a death world. They looked like people who had learned to smile in the face of adversity. And somehow, that was more unsettling than if they had arrived armed and aggressive. I think, she said slowly, that we need to revise our understanding of what Earth's classification means. General Thrax grunted. The planet is still extreme, Ambassador. That hasn't changed. No, agreed. But perhaps we've been looking at it wrong. We classified Earth as extreme and assumed that meant its inhabitants would be either primitive survivors or dangerous threats. We didn't consider a third option. Which is, asked. Looked at Sarah, who was watching her with those intelligent, curious eyes. That they might be exactly what the galaxy needs. Species who have learned to face impossible challenges and find reasons to smile. The session adjourned shortly after, with plans to reconvene in a week to discuss the specifics of Earth's integration into the Galactic Council. As the humans left the chamber, Conversations erupted among the representatives. The galaxy would never be quite the same, and everyone knew it. 6 months passed, and the Galactic Council discovered that integrating humanity into galactic civilization was nothing like they had anticipated. The problems they expected never materialized. The problems they didn't expect became impossible to ignore. Human merchant vessels were outperforming Council ships in scenarios that should have been impossible. When a colony suffered a catastrophic pressure dome failure on Prime's largest moon, Council rescue teams estimated a 72-hour minimum response time. The high gravity and unstable atmospheric conditions made quick approaches extremely dangerous. Every protocol required careful, methodical procedures that took time. Stellar Horizon, a human cargo hauler, happened to be 3 systems away when the distress signal went out. Captain Jennifer Torres diverted course immediately. Her ship hit the moon's atmosphere at angles that made flight control officers across 3 systems wince. She ignored every standard safety protocol, pushing her vessel through conditions that should have torn it apart. 14 hours after the dome failure, every colonist was aboard her ship, safely en route to the nearest medical station. When questioned about her reckless approach, Captain Torres simply shrugged. The math worked out. We had enough structural integrity to handle the stress, and those people needed help now, not in 3 days. You don't leave people behind when you can save them. Flight Control tried to fine her for violations. The government gave her their highest civilian honor. The fine was quietly dropped. Similar stories spread across Council space. A human mining team rescued workers trapped in a collapsed tunnel on a high-pressure world, working in conditions that made rescue drones fail. Human security consultants stopped pirate raids that had plagued shipping lanes for years. Human engineers solved problems that had stumped Council experts for decades, often with solutions that made traditional engineers nervous but undeniably worked. The pattern became clear. Humans excelled in exactly the situations other species found most difficult. Emergency response, dangerous environments, high-stress scenarios, anywhere that required quick adaptation and nerves of steel. The Council's security sector was the first to officially acknowledge what everyone already knew. Station Commander, a grizzled warrior with 3 centuries of experience, sent a request to the Council for authorization to hire human security personnel for key installations. "I don't care what anyone says about proper protocols," his report stated. Piracy in the outer reach dropped 90% after the humans stationed there made examples of 3 raiding parties. Not through excessive violence, mind you. They just captured them efficiently and professionally. Word spread fast. Don't raid anywhere with human guards. I want that reputation protecting our critical facilities. The request was approved. Within months, human security consultants were the most sought-after professionals in Council space. Insurance companies offered lower premiums for ships and stations with human security details. Pirates actively avoided routes known to be patrolled by human vessels. But the most unexpected development came from an entirely different sector. The tourism industry discovered Earth. It started with a wealthy, harmonious collective merchant named A, who paid an enormous sum for a permit to visit Earth under heavy supervision. She spent 2 weeks in what humans called a nature preserve in a place called Costa. When she returned, she couldn't stop talking about it. "The colors," she would say, her feathers quivering with excitement. "You can't imagine the colors. And the sounds, birds, insects, mammals, all creating this symphony of life. I saw a waterfall that would dwarf anything on our. I walked through a forest where the trees were so old they were growing when our species was still primitive. And yes, it was dangerous. My guide warned me about venomous snakes and aggressive insects and a dozen other threats, but it was worth it. Every moment was worth it." Her travel logs went viral across 17 worlds. Suddenly, every wealthy alien with a sense of adventure wanted to visit the famous Death World and survive to tell the tale. Earth's Tourism Board, quickly recognizing an opportunity, established strict protocols for alien visitors. medical supervision, specially trained guides, emergency response teams on standby. I survived Earth became a popular boast in certain social circles. Exclusive tour groups visited rainforests, savannas, and coral reefs. The braver tourists tried mild adventure activities like zip-lining or snorkeling. A few extremely wealthy thrill-seekers paid premium rates for supervised mountain climbing expeditions. The humans, for their part, found the whole thing amusing but were happy to accommodate. Earth's economy benefited enormously, and humans discovered they had a talent for hospitality. Who better to help aliens navigate a dangerous world than the people who grew up there? But beneath these surface changes, something more profound was happening in the halls of power. The Galactic Council itself was changing. A territorial dispute between the Empire and the Al Federation had been escalating for months. Both species were aggressive, proud, and historically unwilling to compromise. The disputed territory contained valuable resources, and both sides had legitimate claims. Diplomatic negotiations had failed repeatedly. Military advisors were drawing up battle plans. An entire sector was preparing for war. Ambassador Sarah requested permission to address the council regarding the dispute. Many representatives were skeptical. What could humans, who had been part of the council for less than a year, possibly contribute to solving a centuries-old conflict? Sarah stood before the assembled representatives with her characteristic calm confidence. "I've reviewed the details of this dispute," she began. "Both sides have valid claims. Both sides feel their honor is at stake. Traditional diplomatic solutions have failed because neither side can compromise without losing face." "We're aware of the situation," Ambassador said gently. "Unfortunately, awareness doesn't provide solutions." "I have a proposal," Sarah continued. "It comes from human history, from a time when our own civilizations faced similar conflicts. Instead of war, instead of endless negotiations, I propose a competition." The chamber erupted with confused murmurs. General Thrax's translator made a sound that suggested disbelief. "A competition? We're talking about territory and resources, not a game." "Exactly," Sarah said. "You're treating this like a life-or-death struggle, but what if you treated it like a game instead? A series of athletic competitions, skill challenges, tests of strategy and teamwork. The winner gets the territory. The loser gets honor for competing well and the respect of the galactic community." "That's absurd," Ambassador declared. "We don't settle matters of state with games." "Why not?" Sarah asked simply. "You're about to settle it with war, which is just a deadlier game with higher stakes. What I'm proposing gives both sides a chance to prove their superiority without deaths, without destruction, without the economic cost of military conflict. Your people get to demonstrate their skills. The galaxy gets entertainment. Everyone wins something, even the losing side." "Humans have done this?" asked, his analytical mind already working through the possibilities. "Many times throughout our history," Sarah confirmed. "We've settled disputes with everything from chess matches to athletic competitions. The ancient Olympics on Earth were partially designed to reduce conflicts between our city-states. Instead of fighting, we competed. It doesn't always work, but it works often enough to be worth trying." The debate that followed was intense. The Anal were initially insulted by the suggestion, but as Sarah outlined the specifics, presenting examples from human history and suggesting appropriate competitions that would highlight each species' natural strengths, something unexpected happened. Both sides became intrigued. 3 weeks later, the first Galactic Games took place on a neutral world. Thousands of spectators attended in person, with billions more watching across Council space. The Anal competed in races, strength competitions, strategy games, and team challenges. The humans had carefully designed each event to be fair and to showcase different aspects of each species' abilities. The won by a narrow margin, but something remarkable happened during the closing ceremony. The AL team captain approached the captain and, in front of the entire galaxy, acknowledged their worthy victory. The captain, in turn, praised the AL team's performance and suggested a rematch in 5 years for a different disputed territory. The crowd went wild. Two species that had been enemies for generations had just agreed to settle future disputes through competition rather than combat, and they were smiling about it. Ambassador watched the ceremony from her private box, sitting next to Sarah. "You've changed something fundamental here," she said quietly. "This isn't just about one territorial dispute. This could change how the entire council handles conflicts." Sarah smiled, that same smile that had unsettled during their first meeting, but now understood it better. It wasn't the smile of a predator. It was the smile of someone who had faced down challenges and learned to find joy in overcoming them. "On Earth," Sarah said, "we have a saying, the hardest challenges make the best stories. Humans have always loved a good story, and what we've learned is that you can turn almost any challenge into a story worth telling if you approach it the right way. Your planet tried to kill you every day," observed, "and you learned to see it as a story." Exactly. Earth taught us that survival isn't enough. Humans need meaning, purpose, challenge. We need something to strive for. Your people have been trying to eliminate challenges, to make everything safe and predictable. But maybe what the galaxy needs isn't less challenge. Maybe it needs people who know how to face challenges with hope instead of fear. Over the following months, the transformation of the Galactic Council accelerated. Human consultants helped redesign emergency response protocols. Human psychologists introduced new approaches to conflict resolution. Human educators started teaching courses on adaptive thinking and resilience. Human artists brought new perspectives to galactic culture, creating works that celebrated struggle and triumph in equal measure. But perhaps the most significant change came late one night in the council chambers, during a private conversation between Ambassador and Sarah. "We made a mistake," admitted. They were alone in the vast chamber, standing by the observation window that looked out at the stars. "When we classified Earth as extreme, we thought we were warning the galaxy about danger. We thought your people would bring violence and chaos because you came from a violent, chaotic world. And instead," Sarah prompted gently, "instead you brought hope. You showed us that it's possible to face impossible odds and still smile. That challenges don't have to break us, they can make us stronger. That even in the darkest times there's room for beauty, creativity, and compassion." Feathers ruffled with emotion. "Earth didn't make you cruel. It made you capable of finding light in darkness." Sarah was quiet for a moment, looking out at the infinite stars. "You know what's funny? Humans have spent our entire existence wondering if we're alone in the universe. We looked at the stars and hoped, dreamed, imagined what we might find out here. And when we finally met you, we discovered that you needed us as much as we needed you." "Needed you." "You've built an amazing civilization," Sarah said. "Peaceful, prosperous, stable. But maybe you've become too safe. Maybe you've forgotten what it feels like to push boundaries, to take risks, to dream impossible dreams. Humans haven't forgotten because Earth never let us forget. Every day on our planet is a reminder that life is precious, that challenges are opportunities, that nothing worth having comes easy. Considered this. So when we classified Earth as extreme, we were actually classifying it as alive," Sarah finished. "Fully, vibrantly, dangerously alive. And humans are the children of that aliveness. We carry it with us wherever we go." The council held a formal session 2 days later to address Earth's classification. Ambassador stood at the podium and made an announcement that would be recorded in galactic history. After careful consideration and 6 months of observation, the Galactic Council moves to reclassify Earth. It will no longer be designated simply as an extreme environment world. The new classification will be Crucible World, defined as an extreme environment that has produced exceptional outcomes. The challenges of Earth shaped humanity into a species of remarkable resilience, adaptability, and optimism. These traits have proven beneficial not just for humans, but for the entire galactic community. The vote was unanimous. The warning beacons around Earth's system remained operational, but their message was updated. They no longer warned ships to stay away. Instead, they announced to any passing vessels that Earth was where the impossible had become possible, where a species had looked at a death world and learned to love it, where challenges became opportunities and adversity became strength. As the session concluded and representatives filed out of the chamber, Commander approached General Thrax. The old warrior had been watching the proceedings with his usual stern expression. "General," said respectfully, "I wanted to thank you." "Thank me for what?" "For giving us a chance. I know you argued for enforcing the exclusion zone with force when we first arrived. You thought we were dangerous." Thrax's expression softened slightly. "You are dangerous, Commander. Make no mistake about that. I've seen the reports. I know what your species is capable of. Humans are apex predators from a world that tried to kill them every day. That makes you very dangerous indeed." Nodded slowly. "I understand, but we're here anyway." "Yes, you are. And I've learned something in my 300 years, Commander. The most dangerous weapon isn't the one with the most firepower. It's the one no one expects. Your people's real weapon isn't your physical capabilities or your adaptability. It's your refusal to give up. Your absolute conviction that challenges can be overcome. That's terrifying to anyone who stands against you and invaluable to anyone who stands with you." The two warriors regarded each other with mutual respect. Then Thrax did something that surprised. He smiled. It was a predatory smile, showing teeth designed for tearing flesh. But it was also genuine. "Welcome to the galaxy, humans," Thrax said. "Things were getting boring before you arrived." Across Council space, life continued, but it continued differently now. Ships,